gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today we're joined by esteemed actor Ewan Estcourt, recently featured in a local production in the Kingsway campus of the University of Chester entitled Parley Decadence. Please welcome Ewan to the stage. Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Ewan.
It's my pleasure to mine.
So we are a bit strapped for time, so we'll just dive in there, and I hope you don't mind a bit throwing you at the deep end here. So let's really dive in. A lot of actors have different methods for preparing for certain roles, and obviously that's all down to how they've been trained. So I guess my first question to you is going to be, how have you prepared for this role, and how have you engaged with the piece of theatre that is going to be performed?
Okay, it's a good question. Well, from day one we were given set rehearsal techniques without being too strict on how we executed them. A lot of them were looking at physicality, looking at your emotions, looking at your body, rather than like a set piece of text. So we had like a piece like round by through, which is manipulating your partner's body. A lot of it was partner work, so you'd experience different relationships with everybody in the classroom. So yeah, round by through, you'd be manipulating your partner's body whilst almost creating a dance-esque piece.
Okay.
So that was one that was extremely helpful for my piece without giving away too much. It was.
So real physical work in the build-up.
Yeah, a lot of disassociation from the real world. A lot of physical work. Again, like I said, like exploring your inner self rather than starting with your outer.
Very interesting. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but am I right in saying that this piece is entirely devised?
Well, again, without spoiling anything, it is entirely devised. I can't tell you in what sort of context.
Of course.
You have to come along, but we were given free rein with how we'd like to, what type of piece we'd like to bring to the performance. So we chose a partner with who we were the best with, and we decided how we would bring our own unique flair into the performance with direction.
Sounds really interesting. Now, obviously, with each interview, there's always a plug, so I feel like we should acknowledge that. If you wanted to maybe tell some of the audiences when we can see some of these shows, and I'm aware that they are quite struck for the right words here. I'm aware that they are quite limited in the number of people they can get, but I mean, if
there are still a few tickets knocking about. Again, like you said at the start, it's called Parley Decadence. Its debut is on Friday.
Friday the 20th of May?
The one coming up.
Yep.
Our first show is at 7 p.m. and then we have two more shows on the Saturday. One at 3:30 and one at 7 p.m.
That would be the matinee, and then again the 7:30.
And then the evening show, yeah.
Okay, well I'll definitely be there to catch one of the shows.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've obviously given the viewers the information for the show, I'd like to really pick at and see if I can get any more information out of you about the character that you play.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be safe to reveal who I'm playing and who my partner are playing. I am Fred Astaire and she's Ginger Rogers. Very esteemed 1920s dancers, 1930s dancers, Hollywood, Broadway, you name it, they've done it. So we thought it would be a challenge just to try and embody those characters as well as we can, and to really portray and bring that to the audience.
I mean, there has to be an element of difficulty when you're obviously yourself as a performer, or then portraying an esteemed, renowned performer. There has to be some sort of, I guess, mental journey that you have to take in order to sort of engage fully. I mean, the anxieties alone from thinking, well, what if I don't portray this character, adequately?
Well, obviously every performer will tell you that you always will have self-doubt of whether you are accurately portraying the character you've chosen. I went through almost a regime of how I would become that character. So I took his classiness. He was a very classy man. He was one of the best around at the time. Lots of money, lots of respect from his colleagues. So I took that. I took his unwillingness to be interviewed because he rarely liked interviews back when he was around. I took his unwillingness to be interviewed as almost a sign of arrogance on his part, because we were dealing with the grotesque for a lot of this performance. So I kind of all rolled this into one to bring my character as almost as a dignitary, almost excessively, almost pompous, but just reaching that level, and just to keep it down. Again, without revealing too much, the knocks he received in the play do kind of keep him as a level-headed guy. And I do feel like I've maybe, I hope, done a little bit of credit to Fred Astaire himself.
I mean, one of the great things about devising pieces of theatre is the fact that it all comes from the artist, and you have this freedom that, as you said before, a set text doesn't really grant you that. I mean, when you take on, let's say, The Tempest or any other piece of theatre like that, there are obviously paradigms that you can sort of engage with, but you have to stay within those paradigms, those set stage directions, those. Whereas when you're devising, I guess you're granted certain, I don't know, exceptions to that. Like you can almost transcend.
You're correct. When you're devising, you've got many different liberties. You can explore yourself in a way that you'd never be able to on text. Although we are still an end-of performance, a kind of a classical proscenium arch performance, you still have the stage with everybody else being so grotesque in their movements and their characterization. You're granted free rein to do pretty much whatever you want within reason. Again, our director was always there to give us tips and to help us along.
Now, obviously, from what we can tell from the posters and obviously the promotion, it's a sort of period piece based in the 1920s that has deep, surreal overtones. And I mean, just from the poster alone and the sort of press release, so I can sort of draw some sort of conclusions, and I know you're not going to give us much, you're not going to reveal too much, but so in the press release it did mention a few key figures around the 1920s. So I mean, Sigmund Freud alone hosts a cocktail party with.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the characters that we've chosen, a lot of the big name characters, maybe Freud being an exception. We look. You said yourself surrealist. We looked at the surrealism movement, Dadaism, which is all around in the 1920s. So we've got the likes of Breton, Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera. Yeah. No, I forget. Sorry, it escapes me. So we've got some big names in the surrealist movement, and then Freud as well. You can't hold a period piece without.
Of course.
A big man in himself. You can't. We've got Charlie Chaplin as well making some appearance. So yeah, we've kind of tried to keep this surrealist theme going with all these characters, and we've peppered it with some big names that the audience can relate to and can identify.
I guess because we're strapped for time that we will wrap it up, but I do need to ask one big question. Now, you did mention before about Fred Astaire and obviously the process that you went through and the technique that you learned through the devising process. So we've covered all of that, I feel. But one of the big things that I really must ask is, you mentioned Ginger Rogers, and as we all sort of know, Fred Astaire and Ginger played on-screen love interest with each other. Now, what I'm feeling like I should ask, and I feel like I'm asking on behalf of all the viewers that will be thinking this, am I right in thinking that there is a potential love interest between the two on stage within this piece? And if so, can you maybe talk a little bit about sort of the process?
Well, again, this is all without revealing too much. You all have to come and see it.
Yeah, so it's speculation. It's speculation.
It's a wonderful piece. Everybody should come down and see it. It will be wonderful. But there may not be a love interest. But what I can say is we did go through a rigorous training regime. My partner, she's wonderful. She dancing since she was a young age, much like Ginger. So she took care of all of that. She basically had a blank canvas to work with.
Nice.
So. Yeah, it was a lot of choreography, a lot of bringing in, trying to bring in some surrealist movements again. Like this is a strong undertone throughout the whole piece. Is this whole surrealist movement. So we went through a lot of different stages of what we were trying to do, and we've ended up with, again, I can't say much, but we've ended up with a nice piece that we're happy with, that kind of embodies the feel of the performance, not the performance itself.
Yeah.
It kind of goes along with the feel. We took on our the rehearsal techniques we were taught. So again, like I said, the round by three felt a lot like choreography. So we took aspects from that and added it into.
I guess it would help, seeing as though you've mentioned previous that the techniques through the devising process were obviously a lot more physical theatre. So that obviously would have direct correlation with your choreography, and sort of that I can start to see now some correlation with the technique and the actual devising. So I can see the two margin. Yeah,
it all came together. And that's not by accident, obviously.
Yeah.
Our whole piece, our whole idea of it. The director did say she wanted a dance piece in there. So my partner, being a dancer, like I said, she took that upon herself to do. And yeah, there's nothing that's happened on stage. I can say personally for myself, I'm not 100% sure about the other actors, but there's nothing that happens on stage that wasn't influenced by the techniques that we had. So even down to the characterization, that once you've started exploring yourself physically, you can bring your characterization onto yourself.
Yeah.
Once you know how you like to work, you can start bringing in characterization after doing research into yourself.
So I think we're just about have enough time for maybe one small question. If you could say anything to pretty much the whole audience, you have roughly 30 seconds to say it, what would you say? I want you to look into the camera.
About the performance?
Yeah, of course.
I would say that the performance it's a wonderful piece. There's not one bad actor in it. It's been beautifully directed, and I would honestly say it's amazing. We've had great help from technicians. We've had just wonderful support, and it's going to be a wonderful show. Come along.
Thank you very much, guys. I highly recommend that you come and attend the show. Please give a round of applause for Ewan Estcourt, esteemed actor.